It's really more than just about black folk. It's about America. Because as long as you have these race-specific statistics that say that black people are disproportionately occupying, the bottom rung of the demographics in this country, it's saying that there's something wrong with America, because that's not the way America is supposed to work. And the reason HBCUs are relevant is because we are the only institutions in America who have taken up the job of trying to solve that problem. And unless that problem is solved, the experiment that we call America can never ever be a success. And that's really the point.
That's real. That's real. That's real.
And I'll just close with this very quick comment on the whole post-racial piece. I interviewed a number of professionals that have either graduated from HBCUs or majority institutions, and asked how their education has helped them in their professional pursuits. Interestingly enough, many of the gentlemen responded with going to majority schools helped them acclimate in the business world. Many of the sisters responded that either a majority school or HBCUs, primarily HBCUs, helped them establish their footing in the business world. And so when we have this whole discussion around this post-racial, there was one brother that responded with, I attended a majority school, but wish that I had attended an HBCU. And he said currently, an executive with a major Fortune 500 company responded, so as we talk about post-racial, said that still in his organization that he's worked 20 plus years, still felt like the standard was always the other man's standard, and it was never just this level playing field. So I think when we address post-racial, we have to understand that we are living in a society where things are real and people, so the relevance of HBCUs is very real. It is not only real for the generation of students that are coming, but it is real in individuals that have already graduated from HBCUs or majority schools. They're still feeling the impact of this quote-unquote post-racial society.
Thank you. One additional question, and then we'll open it up to the floor for you to engage the panelists. African Americans presently still have the lowest graduation rates at less selective colleges. So how do we improve this statistic across the board? And how can HBCUs in particular reverse or help us to reverse this trend so that we are doing something different on behalf of our students?
Well, I'll start off. As you know, we don't manufacture the students. They come as they come from public schools. And for whatever reasons, some of the students don't get in the AP classes, the honors classes, and they don't get the support they need to learn some of the higher level mathematics. So these students come to our schools. One of the things that I wish you would do goes back to my earlier comment, is we do know what works in many areas. Some of our schools, North Carolina A&T, engineers. I mean, they figured out what works. I'm not going to name all the schools, but you can look at diverse issues and you can see the highest producers of attorneys, biology majors, blah, 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 blah. So we have figured out what works. What I hope we're able to do is to gather all that information together and sort of have some type of roadmap. If you take this type of student with these characteristics, whether it's, verbal or mathematical areas that need improvement, we do the following interventions and we come out with a graduate. Does that make any sense, what I'm trying to say? We do know what works.
Well, in my prior life, we actually raised the graduation rate from something like 27% to 47%. There are things that you can do. First, and this is a piece some people miss, you got to separate the ones that are willing to work from the ones that aren't. Because candidly, we were getting some kids that were just there to get the financial aid as long as they could and then not show up in class. And they were dragging on the rest of the students. So we had to figure out how to separate them from the working crowd. And then it's about time and attention, you know, counseling, intervention, assessment. We assess them coming in and we assess them going out the second year, as I recall, yeah. Tutoring, I mean, it's really just resources devoted to taking young students who are underprepared coming out of K-12 and giving them what they need in that first 2 years so that by the time they hit that third year, they're as good as any sophomore, any second-year student in the college, because it'll take them 5 years to finish. And then the other thing is that if you track HBCU graduation rates out 7, 8, 9, or 10 years, what you'll find is that their graduation rate actually starts to go up to be almost like the majority schools.
I just want to say about that issue. This is the critical issue from the standpoint of our administration and from the standpoint of the Department of Education. Fact of the matter is, in order to reach the 2020 goal, we need about 8 million to 9 million more Americans to be college graduates by then, on top of the current base. And we already know that we need about 135,000 to 140,000 more graduates to come out of HBCUs. And by our analysis, we know how many more each institution needs to generate. So that is why we put in place an initiative called Access and Completion. Now, it got left on the cutting room floor. The Senate cut us off on the last time around, but we have it in mind for the 2012 budget, and hopefully we're going to get it, and we see it as a way to help institutions like HBCUs to get the kinds of programs that Drs. Mason and Vital just mentioned and increase our retention rate. The fact of the matter is we can reach the 2020 goal just by retaining the freshmen who enter. Okay? Just by taking care of this issue that you're talking about. And this is a beautiful segue because Ron Mason talked about how he at Jackson State increased it by 20 points on his watch. I just want to say leadership matters. Leadership matters a great, great deal. Dr. Tisdale at Claflin has done the same thing. He moved that number because he focused on it and did a great job. I need to give a shout out because one of the members of our club is in the room. Dr. Andrew Hughini is president of Alabama A&M. He is in the house. He's president. And I just want to say that he's doing a great job down there in Alabama. Leadership matters. Remember that.
One thing that I would just add that Mr. Joyner spoke on earlier, as well as Mr. Wilson, the alumni's ability is not in just your ability to write a check, but as stated, leadership matters, partnership matters, and mentorship matters. Many times students do not ascertain a business mentor until their junior or senior year, and sometimes even after graduation. So if that whole partnership is able to emerge earlier in this cycle, during this freshman year, then we're better able and better positioned to meet these 2010 educational goals, again, by partnership. So I will echo that leadership matters, but partnership matters, and mentorship also matters.
I have a comment. These are veterans in the trenches. They know what's needed to answer your question. Yeah.
If we can, I'd love to open it up to the floor at this time. We have a microphone nearby that might be best in order for us to hear your question. If you could come to the microphone, and we will give the panelists a few minutes to respond to you.
Hi, my name is Ori Ward, Morehouse class of 2007. I serve currently as the Vice President for Programs and Development for a financial literacy nonprofit, and our specialization is our program, peer-to-peer models, training models for high school and college campuses, and I think it's pretty effective. I actually had a comment and a question. I wanted to let you know, I'm 3 years out, and I don't see a lot of me in the room, so just let you know what we're dealing with as recent graduates, okay? I get calls every day from my friends who are looking for jobs. Right. okay? We got to the workforce after graduation and we said, hold on, wait a minute. We're doing $10 million worth of work for a company and we're getting paid $70,000 and that's a good job, okay? The other thing that we're dealing with is that we've successfully accomplished what they asked us to do. We went and we crossed that road and we went to Wall Street and my friends, we went to Harvard and we went to Yale and there's still no jobs, even for those of us that went on to get terminal degrees. So just to let you know that what we're dealing with, but I wanted to address specifically the why in terms of giving. There's something as a community that we uniquely have to deal with that most other ethnic groups do not. And that is, one, self-esteem. As a people, we have terrible self-esteem, which is why the whole aspect of race is such a big thing for us because, you know, we're not black enough or we are too black or whatever it is we're dealing with. It seems indirect, but it's highly significant in terms of us not giving back. The second thing is consumerism, and the third thing is debt, okay? We're getting out, we can't pursue our dreams, we can't become innovators because we have to pay Sally Mae back. And she comes every month faithfully. And she doesn't care about anything, and so we have to take jobs that we don't like, jobs that have nothing to do. That's why 70% of us go into career fields that have nothing to do with our majors. We have to pay people back. But you go to the Jewish Federation, and they are planning successfully for, as a community, education. The Asians, successfully. We have, as a community, no succession plan. So I want to make this one comment which for you all to eat up, and then I'm going to sit down. The first thing that I wanted to say was our feeder school strategy. It has to go. Our feeder school strategy is what's killing our self-sufficiency as a community, and it proliferates indigencies. I don't want to offend anybody in here, I'm sorry. We want to go and work for the powerful establishment. We want to go to Wall Street, and you know, that's our idea of success, going to work for somebody else, and we're depleting our communities of resources, quite frankly.
So is there a particular question?
Yes, I'm sorry, there's a particular question. Let me go ahead and jump. I'm sorry, because I can eat this all day long. I'm sorry about our insolvent financial strategies. But anyway, this is the how. I want to actually give you all something substantive for you to eat. This is how, in the last few years, we've been working actually as a recent alum to help you guys out. And Morehouse, you'll see this soon. Entrepreneurship and research innovation. Okay? Entrepreneurship, I can guarantee you can get more of us to give back if as a school you create innovative strategies to help our businesses, to help our nonprofits, to help our community strategies. I'll write you a check myself, and I'm an independent business owner. The other thing is study abroad, global relationships. The third thing is apprenticeships during matriculation. If you connect black business owners with black students, as a matter of fact, we have a strategy that we'll be releasing in 2013. I dare you to turn your HBCUs into a temp workforce agency and see what productivity does. The last thing that I want to mention is overall succession. One of the things I really like about Yale and Harvard's their school model, at the top of it is the Yale Corporation. And they convey it for 999 years. They convey their corporation to themselves. So the bottom line is productivity. They sell their strategies, they sell their academic innovation to the corporate market. They buy it, they buy it, they buy it, and at last, they don't have issues like we have. So let's, eat up the feeder school strategy. I'm sorry.
Comments from the panelists? I think you said it all. You just said it all, so there's no response for us.
Thank you. Let's get to the question.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure I can follow that up.
You can if you're short.
It will, well, compared to the line behind me, I am.
She meant brief.
Very brief.
Dr. Wilson, you made reference to the executive order on HBCUs that was signed by President Obama. Another executive order that has recently been signed by the president deals with the employment of individuals with disabilities. And in our post-racial society, the reality is that we're changing a lot of labels. I work for a federal agency, and we are working very closely with a lot of majority institutions to engage people with disabilities to get them to the workforce. However, I'm not seeing HBCUs, and I'm a graduate of an HBCU HBCU myself. So I have two questions for the panel, of course. The first is, what strategy should we be using in the federal government to engage HBCUs in order to get those same connections that we have in majority institutions? And number two, what do each of you see as either viable methods, options, or practices to engage your students with disabilities on HBCU campuses beyond general accommodations, beyond ramps and captioning, but what is actually being done to push them forward in the same way we do with our African students, our international students, our multicultural students, and even our white students in HBCUs? Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things I mentioned, that I am the Director of Partnerships with Penn Good and Associates, and we are an organization that works with literally every federal agency, and we are called upon. Partnerships is a word that, if you haven't heard much, you'll continue to hear, because public and private partnerships are the key to many of these federal agencies accomplishing the initiatives that are handed down from the administration. And so we work with a public entity to help accomplish, a private entity to help accomplish the public agendas. And you will see and hear more and more and more of this happening to make sure that disparities are not happening in our community, or even with hard to reach or underserved populations. So it is happening.
I'll give a brief response. One of the challenges for HBCUs is the fact that we're under-resourced. In under-resourced institutions, the default thing to do is to do what is minimally required by the federal government. So that's why you see ramps and signs and things like that. Your question is about getting into a creative space to make a campus more hospitable. In order to do that, you need resources. And so I get back to the other issue. I do want to say just 30 seconds on the young Morehouse brothers stood up. You mentioned the reasons why we don't give self-esteem, consumerism, and debt. I just want to add one thing to that I've heard. I've visited 30-some campuses in the last year in this job, and a number of other campuses before that. And I talk with students on every campus, and that's my test question. If you became worth $25, $30 million, $100+ million when you leave here, would you drop 10 million, 20 million on your alma mater? And the answer, more often than not, is, well, there are two answers. One is no, and the other is absolutely not. And the reason why is customer service. Okay, they complain about that financial aid office in particular. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And oh, applause. And the registrar's office. They complain about those two offices, and I want the presidents in here to know, the alumni and everybody to know, if you fix those two offices on your campus, your alumni giving will probably increase dramatically, exponentially, okay? So that's just from testimony that I get. And then that'll give us the resources we need to make a better campus for our challenged students that you've asked about.
Let me deal with your question first, and then let me respond to it. We struggled with the, beyond the required accommodations, it is a struggle. But we were very sensitive to it in my past life, and I'm not sure exactly yet what's going on in my new life at Southern University. But let me offer this to you. If you have ideas, suggestions, and you want to get the HBCU community involved, you can do it through the sort of trade associations like the National Association for Equal Opportunity in Education, UNCF for the privates, Thurgood Marshall for the publics. If nothing else, they can get the word out that you're there and that you're looking for a relationship with us that can help us and help you as well.
And so can our White House office.
And so can the White House Initiative. So that's the answer to your question. And then I don't need to respond to that, but let me just say it is a chicken and an egg. You know, those delivery systems are fixable, but you have to do both the resources to do it. And much like with you know, accommodations for the disabled, you're kind of doing as much you can with what you have to work with. But having said that, I've always been of the opinion that if you're going to prioritize your resources, you prioritize it in the area of financial aid and registration, because that is an issue that lives on far beyond graduation. So it's fixable, and we will fix it at Southern, trust me.
Can I make a comment
Yes.
about financial aid? I'm not going to name this institution, but I was at one of our HBCUs, and the line was wrapped around, financial aid was wrapped around the building, and I even envisioned that helicopters were flying over, and I was getting calls from senators and congressmen. But when I went in the office, what I observed was that the counselors were really taking time with each family, and the time, there just wasn't enough time. Because there were people who appeared and didn't have the FAFSA. You know what the FAFSAs are, right? There were people who woke up on July 30th and decided they were going to go to college on August 1st. So what we have been doing, because some of it is not customer service. Some of it is just that there are too many people to get what you need, too many students and families to service in too short a time. So what we have been doing is reaching out to families, having workshop with families on FAFSA and how to, you know, scholarships, how to apply to college and what you need to do, so and so the transaction is easier and as much online as possible.
Let me pick up on the wealth thing too, because that was something else that John mentioned. You know we don't have a lot of wealthy alumni like the other institutions out there. And we know that the job for us is to get a lot of people to give a little. Now, at Jackson State, we raised the giving rate by about 1,300%. We went from 1% to 13% over the course of 10 years. So it's all relative, right? But I need to say this as well. You can always find an excuse not to give. You know, it could be something that happened in 1972 when you were standing in the registration line and you asked somebody for $1 and they say, well, damn it, you know, back in 72. But at some point you got to decide, at some point you have to decide that it just doesn't matter because you love your institution. And if the decision of HBCU alumni as we sit here today is not that they love their institutions no matter what, that we're going to draw a line today and make sure that our institutions are here tomorrow, they will not be here tomorrow. And that's just a simple fact of it. That's right.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. I have a concern, and I have something that I would like to share with the university, actually the presidents of the universities and the faculty and so forth. I have had the privilege of having worked at Cheney University. I was on the faculty for a couple of years at Cheney in 1991 in the physics department, and also at Lincoln University, where both Cheney and Lincoln claim to be the first HBCUs, the first. I don't know, you know, it's a toss-up between the two. It depends on who you ask, who's the first and so forth. But I have a major concern. I also have a question, Dr. Vitale, as president, what we can do to help. And also my concern is that I am a scientist. I'm one of the, I worked at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, where we put up satellites into space. We observed global warming and so forth. And I am one of approximately 25 some odd PhDs in a branch of scientists who put up satellites into deep space, and we test the laser systems. In my job, I had a clean room lab where I go in and test laboratory components of nonlinear crystals and so forth, devices that we put into space for failure analysis and so forth. And my concern is that I am the only one for years at my branch that looked like me. So that's a problem. I also served at NASA's, what is known as the ambassadors, NASA Goddard Ambassadors Group, where we go out. NASA's trying to improve its image in the world and also in the area when it comes to academic. Because we had a director one time said, the director got up in an auditorium and said, NASA is no longer in the education business. That's a problem. They're no longer in the education business. They don't care about education. And I can tell you, I have a colleague with me right here. She's from Gallaudet University. I don't know what it looks like her, you know, teaching microbiology and a major science. You know, it's a major, it's one of these kind of things that you look at. What can we do? And there were only, out of almost 10,000 on the campus there, scientists and engineers, most of contractors and some working for the government. There were about 2 or 3 female, African-American females with PhDs in the sciences. There were 4 at one time. One passed away, probably because of stress-related problems and so forth. I'm retired out of that group, by the way, you know, so I had enough. So
are there, real quick.
My question to you, what can we do? I mean, you as the universities and the presidents, I think what you have to do is put forth more effort. You have to reach in somebody. So if people like me working in these groups, if you could reach in sometime, we could help from inside these corporate structures to help you. But you're going to have to come to us, do more. What can you do?
Oh, I think you just gave me the answer. I have to. No, first of all, I'm glad you were at Cheney University. No, seriously, we have to develop that pipeline you're talking about. And as I mentioned, internships, partnerships, as my colleague is saying here, also would help too if you would just drop me a line, go on the web and say, hey, I would like to have a student to work with as an intern or whatever. But you gave the answer. We have to do a better job with internships and getting people who are well placed, as you are and were, to work with our students.
Also, when it comes to tons of money, in the millions of dollars, for example. Now, NASA had a program at one time where they sponsored like $14 million a year or something like that for the university. I'm sure you can use the development in the physical sciences, and at one time, Cheney was being challenged with the science and the physics department. I think you have a science department, but not a physics department. Right?
Well, I'd like to actually hear from some of the panelists in terms of what folks are doing, because I think there's the assumption that nothing is happening, but the pipeline does take a while for us to produce on the other end. So I'd like to hear what some of the other institutions already are doing that can address this point.
Well, let me, I'm used to working with a lot of federal agencies, right? And oftentimes, the agencies themselves can be part of the solution. But also, you know, there's always, or generally speaking, a black person in that agency for whom the issue is important, and they find a way to access the agency's resources to help us help them.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. But there's a bigger structural issue. And let me just talk about the National Science Foundation as an example. You know, they've known for years that there's a shortage not only of African American scientists, but of American-born scientists in general, right? And I've sat on a couple of their advisory, they call them advisory directorates, or directorate advisories, or something like that. But all the money that they have to help increase the number of African American scientists at HBCUs is all in their human resources area. You see, which is not much money at all.
But at NASA, they call them advisory committees. There's an advisory committee for African Americans. There's an advisory committee for Hispanics. There's an advisory committee
at NASA?
And NASA got a space flight center. But guess what?
Yeah,
the advisory committees for the Hispanics are running around, running rings around the African Americans.
Well, put me on the advisory committee. I'll come and help you out. How's it sound?
So that's not our problem.
But what, the resources would help if we wanted to lift up more black students to be physicists and mathematicians and scientists, if that's your point.
All right.
And get them into those agencies. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, hi. My name is Laura Konobi. I'm a parent. 2 out of college already, the 3rd one in Carnegie Mellon. And my comment is to Dr. Wilson. You mentioned about leadership, and other panelists have talked about the alumni contribution, which are 2 valuable, points to take away from this meeting. But I feel like the colleges are having this conversation with our children at the back end. When they come into college, first year, the legislation tells them they're adult, You don't have to report your grades to your parents. You don't have to tell your parents anything. You're grown now. You can make all the decisions. You cut off the umbilical cord at the time they need it the most. So that is one of the reasons why some of them are not completing their education, why they will quit school second year or third year. That is one of the reasons right there. So I think there needs to be a legislative change in terms of their connection with the home. When parents are when they still have, I mean, I'm not talking about over-influence, helicopter kind of influence, but when they're still able to see their children's result and say, wow, what happened? How come you end up on a D? What happened to ABC? The son or the ward knows that, what, I need to do better. Because the fraternities and other distractions are there on campus that doesn't allow them. I mean, what percentage of them are here? So that is one of the reasons why that leadership thing needs to be preached at the beginning, for them to take responsibility. It's not enough that you get out of college, it's enough that you get out of college to impact your community. That's why you're going through college, not just for yourself. About the alumni relation and the alumni contribution, I feel that that conversation also needs to occur at the inception, because a lot of them get scholarship and grants and they think this is lotto. It's not lotto. Somebody put that money there. That's why you have access to it. And you need to find a way to put it back when you graduate. They can buy a $160 Nike or whatever it is Jay-Z or any of them are making. So it's an excuse that you're paying back Sally Mae. You can give back $20 a month. And I had to have that conversation with my 18-year-old because, she's in Carnegie Mellon. School fees is $52,000. They gave us $35,000 in grant. I was excited. I testified in every church I could because, yeah, that is a break for me, So I told her, I said, look, somebody put this money here. When you come out, no matter how de minimis it is, you have to start to put back and be consistent with your giving back, So I think that the alumni involvement needs to happen at this freshman year. They need to understand why they need to put that money back. It's not just, take it now and never look back. So I think if we start to connect with them at that point, we start to build a sense of responsibility in them, and through that, a leadership that we're talking about. So they don't come out of college and still feel lost. Some of them don't even know how to, make a resume and go get a job. So it is sad, but we don't want historical black colleges to be extinct. Whatever it is we need to do, we have to do it. So as a mother, whatever we need to do, we will listen to you because I'm suffering for it now. I have a daughter who scored a 21 in MCAT but cannot get into medical school. I'm scared that she's going to lose that vision because Martin Luther King Hospital is out of business. We can't afford for, black institutions to go out of business or to be, wiped out just like that. So whatever we need to do as women, as black community, or whatever it is, so please, we need you to empower us. Let us know what it is we can do from now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Jason Lee, and I run a nonprofit for kids in Detroit in pre-college educational program. Through my job, I have the opportunity to sit on several review panels for federal government, competitive government projects like NSF. In a pool of, 500 applications, there may be 3 from historically black colleges and universities. And of those 3 are coming from the usual suspects, as they call them, the Howard University, maybe North Carolina A&T, and FAM University, particularly in STEM fields. Is there an initiative at HBCUs to scale up research in universities, particularly in STEM fields, and is there support from the White House to do that? Because as you talk about revenue generation with the indirect costs associated with some of these federal grants, there's a lot of money that's being left on the table, and HBCUs are not taking advantage of that.
I'll just say very briefly, the answer is yes. I have 2 associate directors working full-time to increase or enhance the connection between the federal agencies that fund research and HBCUs, and we fully expect those numbers to go north.
Okay.
You want me to say something?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to have to say this, because besides the schools you mentioned, Jackson State is actually the #1 in the country in federally funded research last year. Actually beat Howard, just so you know. And got some very large grants from NSF. So it's doable because, 10 years ago, Jackson State was a teaching institution. But you have to, again, devote the resources to it in a prioritized way and go out and get it. And that's what's going to happen in my new life here, because we have all the pieces there. It's just about, pointing us in the right direction and deciding that's what we're going to do as a priority.
Okay. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Philip Jefferson. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Okay, my question is, statistics in America show that HBCUs produce more African-American students who go on to graduate school to earn their master's degrees than colleges that are not HBCUs. So my question is, why do you think this is the case?
You looking at me? You speak for HBCUs, right?
I think that's an old stat. We're scrubbing the statistics on HBCUs right now, and we're finding that a number of agencies have been using stats that are pretty dated. And if you think about it, and one of the reasons why we started to question some of the value statements, some of the factoids, is because right now, and for the last roughly a decade, 85 to 90% of the African Americans, as I said earlier, are being educated outside of HBCUs. Now, we do educate a disproportionate number of the graduate students, especially in the sciences, in the STEM fields. But I think we probably should have stopped saying we graduate most of them a while ago, okay? Because I think it has shifted pretty fundamentally, just driven by the numbers alone. So I would check that, and I'll promise you we're going to check. We're already checking that and other value props.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Aaron Evans. I work for Union Pacific Railroad. We're a Fortune 200 company. I typed this up and forget while I was standing in line. We have over 40,000 employees at our company. And the majority, or all of our operations, are west of the Mississippi. The majority of the HBCUs are east of the Mississippi. So if you had an opportunity to speak with my senior VP of HR about the value of recruiting at an HBCU, what would you tell her? That's the first question. Second question, what suggestions would you give her on how the company's approach to be successful at recruiting an HBCU?
You could type all of that in?
Yeah, I do a lot on this thing, I'm sorry.
Well, I'll start off by saying probably most HBCUs have career fairs. So one of the things is just to get on the agenda and do the circuit of 100 or so career fairs. And I'm not really sure that I would say the approach should be different, except in terms of recruiting the students from HBCUs, except for to maybe look beyond some of the indicators of the GPA and, and see the persistence and the maybe the passion the person may have for the job.
The challenge I have for you on that question is we do a lot of recruiting, and what the company does is they, the value and the return in the effort. So coming to a Jackson State, coming to a Tuskegee, you can't fly from Omaha, Nebraska directly to a Tuskegee or a Jackson State. So the expense comes up. We do send 8, 9 people because we do from different departments. So there's a cost there. The thing that we have not figured out is there are a lot of jobs that we have to offer. We're hiring today. But we have a hard time engaging with those, the career services, a lot of time at the HBCUs. So if there's not somebody there as an advocate internally at the company, it makes it very difficult.
You want me to answer too?
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
Well, that's a setup question because I spent a day in Omaha at Union Pacific with Aaron. Been to campus more than once, and we probably send, what, 5 or 6, Jackson State that is, sent 5 or 6 students a year to Union Pacific.
We've got 26 today.
26 today, and you know, and the reason is because they're good workers. In fact, I think last year before, Darnell, was it, won Employee of the Year or something?
Lavelle Clark, yeah.
Yeah,
Lavelle Cox, yeah.
Yeah, Cox. And that is the answer to the question. I mean, if we produce good quality students, and HBCUs produce good quality students, especially the kind of students that you were looking for in the sales and management trainee areas and those kinds of things. And you have examples of that. So that when you're trying to sell it to your folks in Union Pacific, all you got to do is point to the students you have and say, let's go get some more of these, right?
Well, right, but like, as you stated, we have an advantage by having you come to the company.
Well, and we established a relationship over time, and I guess that's the message that, you know, every HBCU campus can reach out. You've just put yourself out there to be reached out to.
There you go.
So my guess is you'll be getting a few calls. Yeah.
Can I have your card?
Sure, you can.
To answer his question and to expand upon what Dr. Mason was talking about and even mentioned earlier in his remarks, there was a question earlier about alumni giving. Dr. Mason mentioned about how at every company there is one African American who takes the cause a little bit more seriously and pushes that groundswell to go and make something happen from their company. And that's something that we often notice, especially during the early days of the time during our foundation, that a lot of our corporate money would come from a high-ranking African-American VP who took it upon themselves to push a donation to the alma mater through us. HBC presidents can sell themselves as hard as they can until they're talking to the blue in the face, but at the end of the day, there has to be a groundswell from within the company to make sure that their higher-ups hear them to go and support, whether it's recruit, donate, lend professors, whatever, to an HBCU. Now, a good example I can think of off that is I just saw them downstairs today in the expo hall, Oak Ridge Laboratories. Some things that they've been doing with Knoxville College and some other schools throughout Tennessee. But at the end of the day, the question is not just what can HBCU presidents do to get Fortune 500 companies to recruit more from their campuses, but they also have to, the companies themselves, there has to be something from within the company that forces these companies to recruit.
First, I'd like to say thank you so much for all of the expertise that you have in the panel. We're really enjoying everything that we're learning today. My name is Hardy Brown. I was the director of cooperative education at Wilberforce University in Ohio. And I have since left there to go home and take over my family foundation. My father came down with Lou Gehrig's disease, so I've had to return back to California. And some of the things that we're talking about I'm really excited about because my expertise was career services. I was the director, I handled all the career fairs, and I learned that there were certain things that you had to do on our campuses to really engage our students. And some of these things that you're saying are exactly right. We have to engage, we have to go to the career fairs, we have to work with the campuses to get the kids excited. Now that I'm in California, I'm working with a contingent of community colleges and universities on the West Coast of students who would love to attend HBCUs. And one of the things that they're asking me, and I'm glad I have this will go to maybe the White House initiatives in the two colleges, articulation agreements. Students want to transfer from community colleges to HBCUs. There is no articulation agreement so that they know what classes to take when they're at Riverside Community College in Southern California to know exactly what classes will transfer to several HBCUs. And I'm wondering, is there some type of a network, something I don't know about that I can take back to California with me so that we can increase the enrollment, which will increase the dollars, which will increase the alumni giving, which will increase everything that we're talking about today, because in California, if you don't know, our economy is down. So these kids can't get into the Cal States and the UCLAs and the UC Berkeleys. They would love to come to our HBCUs. Let you address that.
You know, actually, at the White House Initiative Conference, there was a lady who I think was either in charge of admissions for the whole community college system there or something, and she made the same point. A lot of students, especially African American and Hispanic students, are stopping at a 2-year degree. So my antenna went up real quick because it sounds like a real potent market. And putting together an articulation agreement really just requires us to send someone out there and meet with somebody like her and work through the mechanics of it, and I think it's a real good idea. In fact, the chancellor of the Baton Rouge campus was there with us, and I saw him get up and go and give her a card and have about a 5-minute conversation with her, so I think we're already on that.
Yeah, it's the same thing for Cheney University. Usually that happens between the provost, the academics, the deans, or whatever, in terms of articulation, but we definitely would be interested.
Is there a way, and this is just coming from dealing with a number of schools, is there a way for us to have one single point that can deal with a number of HBCUs? Because one student from California, when they go to our Black College Fair in Los Angeles, they want to be able to walk into Cheney and Wilberforce and Southern and Tuskegee and say, if I take these classes at my community college, I can transfer. Right now, 60% of kids do not transfer. They get stuck in that community college system. And these are numbers that can be those numbers that you're looking for.
Right. I think that is, I think it's creative. It is being discussed right now, although you can get an associate's degree, which is what you get from a community college, and still be counted toward the 2020. So it would be double counting. That's just in terms of the goal, but just in terms of the question you ask and human development associated with it, getting a BA, I don't know about a single organization point for that. That might be a little hard to pull off, especially because of the diversity in the HBCU community. You'd have to account for that. But there is some segmentation that we're thinking about, and you could also segment the community college sector in the same way and create some matches and some flow. It's the case that 40% of the African Americans in higher education are in community colleges. So it is an enormous supply of students, and it behooves a lot of HBCUs to begin connecting with community colleges. Just start locally and then go broader.
Sounds like an entrepreneurship opportunity.
Right, absolutely.
That's right. Dr. Moffitt. How are you, Dr. Jackson?
Great. It's good to see you again, former colleague. 3 questions. Conspicuously missing from our discussions about HBCUs, and particularly today, in my observation, are 2 sectors. One, current students and current faculty. I never see provosts, never see faculty senate members. Ooh.
I mean, you never see them on a panel?
Pardon?
I mean, you never see them on a panel?
Never see them on a panel, never see them involved in these discussions. Of course, I have my ideas about that, but I'll keep them to myself today. Because I'm smart.
They were on his panel earlier this week. Dr. Wilson had provost on his panel.
Okay, well, not here. I didn't see him, but I have never seen him. I was at the White House in the Rose Garden the day this initiative was signed into law by President
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter. I was a White House intern for Jimmy Carter. So I've been watching this for a long time.
Well, you missed my conference.
I'm proud to see. I'm proud to see what has happened with it, though, and I'm happy to see you in leadership.
Thank you.
But I'd like to, my question is, can we see more current students and more current faculty as a part of these discussions from now on, please?
We don't form the panel.
I know.
We just got invited and we came. We didn't form the panel.
And thank you for coming. But this question goes out to the universe. Okay? That's number one. Number one question. Number 2 question goes to the Tom Joyner initiative. Who is actually going to teach those online classes at the HBCUs that the, okay, you can answer that, because I've been talking to faculty at different places and everybody's going, I don't know. Okay? And thirdly, with regard to sustainability for HBCU presidencies, for HBCU leadership, Harvard, as we all know, has a program where they teach higher education leadership skills. I would love to see perhaps your office or someone in the universe create a program similar to that where HBCU leadership is developed. Provosts, presidents, associates in that leadership line created, because we know that Harvard does a great job of creating leadership for higher education, but nobody can create leadership for HBCUs like HBCUs can create leadership for itself. So my question is there a way that we can begin to talk about creating HBCU leadership for its own world? And those are my 3 questions. Thank you very much.
We can pass this on down, yeah. To answer your first question about who's going to teach the courses at hbcusonline.com, first of all, there are many things about HBCUs Online that are still, within the hands, so to speak, of the university. When you enroll through our site and you enroll in a program at Hampton University, when you eventually finish, your degree will say Hampton University, will not say Tom Joyner, hbcusonline.com. With that said, and to a point that Dr. Wilson made earlier, every university has its own, all different, they all have their own concerns. However, the faculty that will be teaching our courses are going to be faculty that are hired by the HBCUs. Now, whether those are tenured professors or adjunct professors, that's the decision of the HBCU that's offering courses through our initiative. And that decision is probably going to be more likely driven by some kind of cost-benefit analysis, whatever makes more financial sense to the school to be able to still deliver the same quality of education. The education will still be delivered. It's going to be whatever makes most sense to the school. So I hope that answers your question. Pardon?
Just as a quick response to your 3rd question, I'm aware of the program at Harvard. When I finished Morehouse, I went to Harvard and stayed there 6 years. I got 3 degrees, and I'm pretty sure spent some time in the program I think you're referring to. I know what their system is like, but I want you to know that there does exist what you're referring to, and it's at Hampton University. There is a leadership institute that Dr. Bill Harvey runs every year, and Dr. Bill Harvey has produced more HBCU presidents than anybody else. I think he's produced in his time there 16 HBCU presidents of different HBCUs, and he holds an institute every year. I spoke at it last year. I'll speak at it this November, and you ought to get familiar with that. Go on the Hampton site and take a look at it and see what you think.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. Katrina Jackson. I'm the Executive Director of the Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus. And one of the issues that we face is the funding of HBCUs. A number of HBCUs around the nation are funded by the state, by private donations. And in our state, we have, like in many other states, the higher education formula. And we fight to revamp that every year. But we are the minority in the interest of HBCUs and how they're funded. And so most of the time, they're not equitably funded. And my question is first for those from other states, have you had this issue when you receive your funding from your state that your funding is not equal or to that of non-HBCU colleges and universities? And in specific for Dr. Wilson, has the Obama administration looked at this, and have you come up with a plan to encourage states to fund HBCUs and to use factors in their formulas that are fair to HBCUs?
Let me go first because I can be real quick. The answer is absolutely yes. We've taken a look at this. At my conference, we had the head of the Office of Civil Rights, a Spelman graduate, talk about the increased focus on this. This has been an issue for a long time. There have been several high-profile lawsuits, the Adams case, the Fordyce case, and others, taking a look at the dual systems of public education in the states. The Obama administration has sent a very clear and firm signal through Ruslan Ali, who heads up the Office of Civil Rights, and Tom Perez, who's over in the Department of Justice, that we are reopening cases, we are taking a look at all the states, and we're going to do a considerable effort to try to close the gap between the dual state systems.
I'm new to Louisiana, but I am studying that formula. And the combination of these very high admission standards and then a performance-based funding is real difficult for us to negotiate. If it was me, I would get all of these lawyers we have that graduated from Southern Law School and talk about suing somebody.
And I guess to piggyback on that real quickly, the Black Caucus plays an active role in trying to have input on how that formula is developed through the Bessie board. One of the things we've asked them to consider for HBCUs in Louisiana is that we graduate non-traditional students and give persons an opportunity to feed back into the economy in Louisiana in at a greater level. Because what usually happens is they come into Southern University making $20,000 to $25,000 as a 25-year-old student, and they leave at the age of 29, 30, sometimes 35. It may take them 6, 7 years to get their diploma because they're working part-time, going to school full-time, or vice versa, and they leave making $50,000, $60,000, and we've been saying this should be a factor that's looked at in the overall higher ed formula, which will definitely increase funding to HBCUs.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Neka Uzo, and I'm an alum of Hampton University. And I'd like to say before anything, I think the HBCU experience has definitely fashioned where I am now, and I don't think I would have been as successful as I am without it. I did my master's degree in a predominantly white institution. And when I look back at my HBCU years or going and visiting other HBCUs that I've seen and comparing it to the predominantly white institutions that I've seen, sometimes the comparison is, ghastly huge. And I think one of my dorm directors said it quite humorously: when you decide to go to an HBCU, you decide to go to school in history. So if you compare some of our colleges, just the facilities, especially when it comes to technology, they are not on the same level as some of the higher funded institutions, other private schools and other state universities. And I know that there are a lot of universities working on, new initiatives. I know Hampton has the Hampton Cancer Institute, and a variety of other schools are making amends to make their school more competitive. However, a vast majority of the HBCUs, if you look at even their majors that they offer and their curriculum, it's still largely liberal arts, and some of the curriculum I feel should be updated to meet the growing needs of the new economy. What are the colleges doing to, one, update their buildings or their facilities or their technology, and two, increasing or making their curriculum more competitive? Because we're asking the questions, are HBCUs still relevant? And you have to ask, are the HBCUs continuing to make themselves more relevant? Thank you.
Well, I'll take a stab at that. As I said, I'm in my 4th year at Cheney University, and we had not had a residence hall in 30 years. Happy to say that we are now having a residence hall built right now. And there are many people to thank for that. Now, the quick answer to your question is that, and it's not an easy answer, is we have to develop a larger community of interests who care about the success of the HBCUs, not only because we are educating primarily at this point students of color, but that we are strengthening America because we are educating people of color and we'll have a diverse workforce. So I think one thing we definitely have to do is to get a larger community of interest, and that's political. So I think that's one of the reasons why we have the residence hall coming up now. The other thing is that, well, I don't want to do the alumni giving anymore, but we have to look at we have to be creative about finding funding. We also are having a new science building, which is going to start next year. And we have been creative in terms of looking for funding in terms of earmarks, grants. You don't have a lot of building funding that you can get now from foundations, but you can sometimes leverage various packages together from various agencies so that you can start a building and mortgage the rest, more or less?
It's really not about being relevant. We have to be better. And not better than in Louisiana, Grambling, because that's really not our competition. See, our competition in Louisiana is LSU, the University of Louisiana, Lafayette, the University of Louisiana Monroe. So we really do have to figure out a way to understand resources we have to work with and that we can reasonably project to have to work with, and then design an institution that's going to be excellent given those resources. And that's a whole different change of paradigm, but I think that's the task that's before us as we look down the road at the global competition that we're going to be engaged in. Because we have to be black and best.
I agree. And real quickly, we're working from the White House to assist the presidents in closing the gap between the gap that you referred to.
We have about 10 more minutes.